ninjatrainingtv.com. And I'm sitting here today with Sean Mason, who's the Shidoshi and the Bujinkan, and Rob Renner also, who's come for a seminar. Sean hosted the seminar here at our local dojo in Santa Cruz, California, and we had a great seminar. We're just coming off the end of it. We just wanted to give a little background and do some question and answer stuff because not everybody gets to go live in Japan, and Rob has been living in Japan for quite a while. In fact, how long has it been now?
It's a decade now, 10 years living in Japan.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so a couple of the questions, we can just go back and forth. What was it that made you decide to move to Japan, or what caused that to happen?
Well, I'll be honest, I started in the Bujinkan in the mid-'80s, so it's been a lot of years. So I was already quite familiar with ninja training, right? And then I took many trips to Japan and trained with Hatsumi Sensei and his top teachers. And in the course of that intense training, I realized that what I needed to do was be in Japan even more, because I wanted to do two things. I wanted to study Hatsumi Sensei, the Grandmaster, and figure out how he gets to what he's doing. And second, I wanted to train with his oldest top students to learn what was the path that the Grandmaster took to get to where he is. And I've been lucky to be able to do those two things since living in Japan.
What do you think are the most important lessons that you've found in Japan?
Well, it's interesting because as my job in Japan is a movement coach. So as a movement coach, what I study are biomechanics, like how to move the body the most efficient and effective way for whatever. It could be for sport, for exercise, but in particular for ninjutsu, for Budo Taijutsu. And in studying this, the important lessons are the things that Hatsumi Sensei, the Grandmaster, talks about almost every class. It's the things his oldest, best students that train with him for 50 years talk about. And it's how to use the body correctly, because there's this connection of the body and the mind that people often talk about. And if you don't use the body correctly, you won't be able to use your mental, your emotional, your psychic, whatever power correctly. And so I study the biomechanics, I study the language, I study the history, I study the Japanese culture in order to make it much more accessible for Westerners like us who think differently than the Japanese culture does.
I think that's one of the things I've been most excited about with Rob coming here is I've gone to Japan a bunch of times, not living there, and I thought I was getting ninjutsu pretty good and had a lot of really good instructors growing up too, but I wasn't looking at it from a scientific approach from your background training, and that is like really cool what each person, as they get up to a higher level, they bring a different thing to the art, and I really appreciate about that with your movement and how you're explaining things. What really blew my mind about this seminar most was just how my concepts of what I thought I was doing in ninjutsu were broken down into a different way, and it's like, hey, let's pressure test this. Let's really see why is this happening and really do it. And you explained some things that were pretty revolutionary to me, and I've been in this for quite a while as well, and it's just so awesome that this is happening. So would you like to share maybe 2 or 3 different little things like that came from this seminar that you think are worthwhile?
Well, it's interesting. What everybody thinks they are training when they first start obviously changes over time, right? Because you just don't know. And this is no different in ninjutsu. The main problem is the Japanese teachers in Japan are teaching in Japanese. People like yourself who are very dedicated, very fit, have a great level of talent, come over for 2 weeks or 3 weeks at a clip, and you get a lot of good information, you improve, and you go back and you don't have the Japanese teachers correcting your little tiny mistakes, right?
Right.
And so those little tiny mistakes can tend to grow. The thing that I've been able to do is for 10 years, get corrected almost every single day. So I train nearly every day, so that those little corrections don't get too far off course. They keep tapping me back into course. Well, a decade of doing that and thousands and thousands of hours of training will give you a little bit different insight. And so this seminar this weekend was just how to take the training that you already do. And of course, you do great training, how to take that and look at it through the lens of history of how ninjutsu came about, how the samurai training came about, how Japan's history in terms of the weapons they used, the political structures, all of this stuff affected our training. And once you look at it through that lens, you're able to have a much clearer idea of what you actually do when you're in the dojo. So even though you're already quite good, now you're able to take that, put it in its proper place, and get even better. Which means for the new person that's just starting off, they don't have to go through 10, 15, 20 years of bad habits. They can skip those bad habits.